Despite the lingering dangers that have remained, Sri Lanka has nevertheless repaid a substantial part of the emergency regulations so necessary during our conflict situation, and plans to repeal a good part of the remainder in the coming months. A great deal has been said by those beyond our borders about our Tamil community. Let me be clear, no nation on earth can wish Sri Lanka's Tamil community more good fortune than Sri Lanka itself. To the misguided few, I say, do not allow yourselves to become an instrument of division, hate and violence, to be used as an enabler for hatred, to be reborn in another form. Rather come, let us join and break the bonds of mistrust to rise new horizons. Sri Lanka recognizes the challenges we face, among the greatest of which is healing the wounds of the recent past. To this end, earlier this year, a Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission has been established, giving full expression to the principles of accountability. This independent commission, comprising 8 Sri Lankans of eminence and stature, has already begun its work. Recently, the Commission handed over to me an interim communication recommending certain administrative steps that may need to be taken in the reconciliation process. We believe that for the rebuilding and healing of our nation to succeed, the process must evolve from within. If history has taught us one thing, it is that imposed external solutions breed resentment and ultimately fail. Ours, by contrast, is a homegrown process which reflects the culture and traditions of our people. We certainly welcome the support of the international community as we rebuild our land and our economy. We sincerely hope that they will be prepared to take a practical approach to developing partnerships with Sri Lanka through international trade, investment and capacity building. Our economy is well on the way to realizing the dividend of peace. We are experiencing steady and sustained growth, including during the last quarter of over 8%. Moderate inflation and low interest rates. During the last 5 years, we saw our per capita income doubled. It is our ambition to take this further, to double yet again the present per capita income by 2016, and also become one of the top 30 countries for doing business by 2014. Mahinda Chintana Vision for the Future, my election manifesto, articulates my vision of having sound infrastructure at the national, provincial and rural levels, which is vital for the inclusive growth that will make development meaningful to the entirety of society. I can also proudly claim that my country, through the economic strategy, is comfortably realizing the Millennium Development Goals, well in advance of the target set by the United Nations. We are present strongly focusing on putting in place the necessary public infrastructure and strengthening the enabling policy environment for the private sector to invest even more in my country. Mr. President, in order to achieve the full realization of our potential, we desire a supportive external environment. Towards this end, we will always look for constructive engagement and partnerships. We will, from our side, continue to contribute, as we have always done, to the cause of multilateralism and a principal global order. In this regard, I am happy to note that 2010 marks the 50th anniversary since we first contributed to UN peacekeeping mission. Our armed forces and the police are today combat tested with a capacity to carry out their duties in the most challenging of conditions. Mr. President, the world, unlike in the past, has become severely vulnerable to natural disasters. Almost every day we see millions of people becoming victims of severe floods, landslides, volcanoes, cyclones, earthquakes, and the like. It has become increasingly difficult for affected countries to manage unassisted the post-disaster recovery programs. The recent natural calamities in our region underline the crucial need for effective action in which there is collective participation to reduce human suffering. Without doubt, climate change and global warming are today issues which demand the urgent attention of all nations. Mr. President, among the political issues that have continued to fester for too long is the continued denial of the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own within recognized and secure borders. It is the fervent hope of the people of Sri Lanka that this most tragic of situation would be resolved without delay in a sustainable manner. We also hope that the Palestinian will be a member of this organization by this time next year. Mr. President, our guiding principle must always be that our mutual respect in international discourse, even as we disapprove and condemn measures such as unilateral embargoes. Experience in the recent past amply demonstrates that these embargoes impact not on governments but on the most vulnerable section of the community. In the same spirit, I would call for the empathy of the international community towards the aspiration of the Cuban people. Mr. President, I also wish to urge, with all the emphasis at my command, the need for greater concern and involvement on the part of the international community to assist the people of Africa in their efforts to elevate the quality of life on their continent. Leaders who have been chosen by their people often face difficult decisions. They must be entitled to the goodwill and confidence of the international community with regard to the heavy burdens they are required to shoulder. The result of their decisions must be evaluated objectively and must be allowed to speak for themselves. That is not to say countries should operate in isolation. In this globally interdependent world, we must work together where we can and constructively counsel each other where appropriate. The United Nations forms the bedrock of this interaction, and in this role it will always receive the support of Sri Lanka. And may the Noble Triple Gem bless you. Obata Teruan Sarana.